Title: Echoes of the Forgotten. The hospital stood like a forgotten relic on the edge of the forest, its crumbling facade barely visible beneath a cloak of thick ivy. The night was cold, a biting wind howling through the abandoned corridors as four ghost hunters made their way through the shattered glass doors. Caleb, the group's leader, shone his flashlight through the darkness, the beam cutting through the dust-filled air. "All right, guys," he said, his voice echoing off the peeling walls. "We've all heard the stories. Patients that never left, doctors that vanished into thin air. Let's see what we can find." "Or what finds us," grinned Lucas, the team's tech expert, adjusting the camera strapped to his shoulder. He tried to keep it light, but his jokes barely masked his unease. Sarah, the lone woman in the group, trailed behind them, gripping her EMF meter tightly. "There's something off about this place," she muttered. "I can feel it, like we're being watched." "You're always saying that," joked Ethan, the youngest of the group. He was nervous, but determined not to show it. "Relax. It's just an old building." They pressed forward, their footsteps echoing unnervingly through the long, decayed corridors. The deeper they ventured, the more the air seemed to thicken with an unseen presence. After an hour of searching, they reached the hospital's central wing, the operating theaters. The smell of old antiseptic lingered in the air, mingled with something metallic, faint but present. "This is where most of the activity's been reported," Caleb said, his voice low. He motioned for them to stop. "Set up here." Lucas crouched, adjusting the cameras while Sarah swept her EMF meter around the room. Ethan's shaky breath was barely audible as he scanned the shadows. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones. Suddenly, Sarah's EMF meter spiked violently, the needle swinging to its maximum. "Guys, I've got something," she said, her voice trembling. Caleb turned toward her, his flashlight flickering. "Everyone, stay close. Whatever's here, it knows we're here too." A sudden crash echoed down the hallway behind them. All four of them spun around, their lights bouncing off the cracked tiles. The sound of heavy, shuffling footsteps filled the corridor, growing louder by the second. "Did you guys hear that?" Ethan whispered, taking a step back. Lucas nodded, his face pale. "It's getting closer." Suddenly, a door at the far end of the room slammed shut with a deafening bang, causing them all to jump. Sarah gasped, gripping Caleb's arm. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know," Caleb said, taking a step toward the door. "But we need to stay calm." Bang! The door in front of them swung open with a violent force, hitting the wall behind it with a crash. A figure, a silhouette, tall and thin, stood in the doorway, its head tilted unnaturally to the side. Its hollow eyes stared at them, dark and unblinking. Ethan's breath hitched. "Is that a patient?" Before anyone could answer, the figure vanished, disappearing into thin air, leaving only the echo of its presence. The room fell into an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of their labored breathing. Caleb tried to steady himself. "Did anyone get that on camera?" he asked, his voice shaking. Lucas was too stunned to speak. He nodded slowly, checking his camera feed. I think I got it." Sarah stepped forward, her face pale. "We need to leave. Now." But before they could move, the lights flickered violently, and the temperature in the room dropped drastically. From the corner of the operating theater, something shifted, a dark mass, crawling across the floor. It moved impossibly fast, and within seconds, it was right in front of them. A scream tore from Sarah's throat as a cold, bony hand shot out from the darkness and grabbed her ankle, pulling her to the ground. "Help!" she shrieked, clawing at the tiles, her face contorted in terror. Ethan lunged forward, grabbing her arms, pulling with all his strength. Caleb and Lucas joined him, their hearts pounding in their chests as they fought against the unseen force. The cold hand tightened, yanking Sarah further into the darkness. In a final desperate pull, they managed to wrench her free, the dark mass retreating as quickly as it had appeared. The room fell silent once more, the air thick with tension and fear. Caleb's voice was hoarse. "Let's get out of here." Without another word, they gathered their gear and bolted down the corridor, the hospital's walls seeming to close in around them as they fled. As they reached the exit and pushed open the front doors, Caleb turned around for one final look. Standing in the hospital's doorway was the same tall, thin figure, watching them. Its hollow eyes glowed faintly in the night, unblinking as it slowly raised a hand to wave, then disappeared into the shadows. They never returned to that hospital. No one did.